All right, so we've seen recently, call it past 30, 60 days, some nuances in the market that are kind of maybe throwing us off a little bit, and we're wondering, let's pose the question, is this the end of the seller's market? What do you guys think?
I would argue that numbers say no, but emotions and the more like psychological side of this would say yes. I think that the buyer pool would say we're sick of it.
I would tend to agree. Maybe the threshold is lowering for multiple offers, where I'd say over the last year or so, maybe even 3 years, it's been around the 450, 500,000 range. Maybe that's getting lower to the 400,000, 350 kind of ballpark.
So you mean like a property that you would typically see multiple offers on, that price keeps getting lower and lower?
I kind of feel that way right now that, like there's some properties that you expect would have had multiple offers, say a year ago in that type of market, and now they're sitting a bit longer than they had. Mm-hmm. Except not every property is. It's kind of
why is that?
It's all over the map right now.
I'm going to ask that because, like, you look at, anybody who follows the Monday market update that we put out, when you look at those numbers, they are mind-boggling.
They're so skewed to favor a seller in London, right?
So skewed. And, like, let's say that. Monday market update is based off of City of London data only, not L-Star, not surrounding areas. We only look at the City of London.
Right.
And when you look at those numbers, correct me if I'm wrong here, buyers do not have the level of inventory they used to have, not even remotely close.
Buyers, the leverage that a buyer has in this market has gone from bad to worse, right?
But we're not seeing the intensity
right
of multiple offers that we saw
exactly
at the start of the year.
And that's why I say, like, despite the data and the numbers pointing so far towards the seller's side, the market has taken such a toll on the buyer pool. I really think that the collective mentality of the buyer pool is over it.
They're just
over it.
They're exhausted.
Yeah, they're exhausted. They're sick of it. And I think that they're unwilling to they're unwilling to compete. They're unwilling to settle. Like, I really think that so many people have just hit a wall and they're so fed up that they're either taking a back seat or, they're just waiting for that one opportunity to come along where they say, okay, I don't think I'm going to have to compete. I'm going all in on this, right?
Mm-hmm. Which are very few and far between, though, right?
But I think it's happening more. Okay, so anecdote.
Would you explain that more? What do you mean it's happening more?
Okay, so I'm just going to go off the past week, okay? There was a house in my neighborhood that I went to check out because it's similar to my house, and I wanted to see what it was like, and I wanted to know what was going on with the offer situation. And attractive neighborhood in the city, really hot price point. First-time buyers would have drooled over this in the spring, okay? Their offer day was set for earlier this week, and to my knowledge, they didn't get multiple offers on that day, okay? The property is conditionally sold now, but a conditionally sold property you wouldn't see a property that was listed under 400,000 in London that looked like this sell conditionally on an offer day 6 months ago. Mm-hmm. They would have had 10 offers and it would have sold, 5 to 20% over list price, right?
That's a good point with conditions too. I was just saying last week that in the past 2 weeks prior to that, I've attended 3 home inspections.
Yeah.
Whereas probably in the last 3.5 years in this seller's market, I've been to maybe a total now of 8 or 9 home inspections.
Yeah. I've got one later today. I did one last week.
Yeah. So in multiple offer scenarios, are we seeing the no longer firm offers? You're seeing more conditions, or is it literally just, are these on homes that didn't go multiples for whatever reason? There was only one party at that moment in time that was interested. And
depends. Some are multiple and getting conditional offers.
Yeah. Right? I've seen that. Yeah. And we do follow outside the city as well. Yeah. And I find that properties that are listed outside the city of London that sell in multiple offers, they oftentimes do sell to a buyer that has included conditions in their offer. We've heard some horror stories over the past 2 years about buyers that submit firm offers and put themselves into positions that are really unfortunate for themselves. And, maybe it's an unwillingness to compete in multiple offers. Maybe it's an unwillingness to submit an offer without conditions anymore, right? Prior to 2017, very rarely would you see an offer or a buyer submit a firm offer, right? They don't have to. They wouldn't have had to.
Yeah.
Okay?
And if it did happen, you were kind of like, it was a lot more like,
Yeah.
what is going on here? Firm, like, are you sure this is
they're
crazy?
pretty rare.
There obviously would be some sure things, right? But I really just think it's the buyers don't want to compete in multiple offers, and they don't want to submit a firm offer, right? A lot of people can't, and they're not willing to.
Well, that's where, when we begin working with them too, we have to know that they're pre-approved for financing.
Sure.
Ideally, we want to talk to their mortgage specialist or recommend one for them, just to make sure their numbers are solid, so that they go in eyes wide open, right? That there's no surprises.
Yeah.
And they can go in confidently, whether they have conditions or not, that they know what they're getting themselves into.
There's a difference between a good firm offer and a bad firm offer. That's just a reality, right? There are certain times where you're like, I don't think you should do that. I really, maybe.
And is that so? Is that because you understand their financial position? They're probably at the very top of what they could get.
Totally.
There's been a bit of hesitation on their part on maybe how much down payment they can get. Maybe their mortgage lender, broker, specialist, whatever it is, has maybe conveyed we should be able to get this, but it's like we should be able to get this. That's a little doubtful should, other than no problem. They can do whatever they want. They're getting money from anybody.
Those are two different answers, right? Also would have to do with the condition of the house, right?
Yep.
I mean, certain people are willing to put up with certain things, right? But for the most part, you want your client to be in a solid home, right?
I'm also seeing more first-time buyers that are getting parents to co-sign.
Yeah. Really.
Just because the threshold has climbed so quickly over the last 4 years, right? Like, the last 3 years, it's gone up about 45%, and within 4 years, we're looking probably 55 to 60% that London prices have increased. So,
and incomes. It's not like incomes went up that same amount.
Right. Okay.
They haven't.
Okay. So let's talk about that.
Incomes have been stagnant for a decade, basically.
Right. Another reason why we could potentially be seeing the end of the seller's market, because the buyers can't keep up. Mm-hmm. Okay. And if the buyer pool just shuts down, okay, if buyers at this point are like, housing prices have gone up 50% in the last 2 years, and I'm making 5% more than I was 2 years ago. What is the hope here? Now they're looking at renting. Right? There are, over the next couple of years, we're going to see an increase in available rental units, especially in the downtown core, okay? And there will be people that say, I can't purchase right now. Either I need to save more, I need assistance from my parents, or I need to be in my job longer, whatever it is. But once again, if the buyer pool is cut in half because of prices increasing, or because buyers are fed up with the process, the seller's leverage is minimized, right?
Yeah.
Which might make prices level out or possibly dip slightly. However, then when they dip slightly, it will fuel the fire again, and more buyers will jump back in.
So it's almost like skipping off, the water and then shooting back up.
I found the first half of this year was super busy.
It was a fire. It was
up
crazy.
Until August. August cooled down until about the last week of August, start of September. Every realtor I've talked to in the last week has said exactly the same thing.
Yeah. August
right now, it's that skipping that you talk about, right? Where for maybe 2 to 4 days, it's just kind of crickets and a little bit quiet. And then all of a sudden you're slammed again with, you've got 3 or 4 new people contacting you saying, I want to list my house, or I want to go see this property.
Okay, so what's causing that 3 or 4 more people where it's like, okay, they want something. They want to go on. Like, from
some
a
people
buyer's
actually mentioned
perspective,
the recent election, that
Totally.
everybody sits on their
yeah.
wallets and waits to see what happens if a new government gets elected, which it's the same government. However, now it's a minority.
Yep.
So there could be some changes coming.
Yeah, people were hesitant to like make a major life decision with that uncertainty, right?
Although the mortgage interest rate stayed the same this week, so
Here's the other thing is we preach this all the time. When we see those active or new listings on a week-to-week basis and they continually go down, as a seller, that's a huge sign that the buyer pool is desperate for more inventory.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And we say it all the time. If you want to capitalize, and we're saying, hey, maybe this is the end of the seller's market, but the numbers don't say it.
Right.
Right? Yeah. So,
but it feels, like being on the listing side of things, it feels like there's some funk going on the buyer side of things. Because you don't see the activity, you don't see the excitement, you don't see...
And typically this is the second busiest time of year for real estate in London, September, October, November, and then December to February, it's quieter.
Yeah. The real serious buyers are out.
However, the last 3 winters have been pretty steady throughout the winter.
Yep. Especially once you come back from the new year.
Yeah.
Things really heat up then, right? Yeah. January, February, March are insane.
Yes.
Or have been
the past few years. They've been
but
really...
But you go 5-6 years ago, I mean, you might as well have just disappeared off the face of the planet for a 6-week time frame because...
I'm going on vacation.
Because, just this like, there was a big seasonality effect.
Yeah.
Now then, okay, is that because as agents... we made that happen, or was it the market made it happen, or was it a combination?
I think it's the market.
Because I believe, as agents, we're always talking like this 6-week window is dead. If that's all we talk about, well, of course it's going to happen. But it's also, I look at it like when I talk to sellers, it's a huge opportunity.
100%.
Let's say if there's, and I always use 100 just because it's easy for numbers. If there's always 100 people shopping for a home, and in the winter time, and they all have various degrees of seriousness on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most serious buyer. Yep. Well, what would you rather have? 100 people looking who vary anywhere from, okay, if the most amazing miracle happens, I'll buy a home, versus only the pool of no, I need to find a home. I need to be moved in 3 months because job transfer, could be divorce, kids going to a new school. Like, who knows?
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, no, like, get fewer people through your home, but they're 5-star buyers that they're shopping with purpose.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, even there's still definitely multiple offers happening in for sure the lower price ranges. There's a townhouse I was going to show tomorrow night. They were holding off offers until Saturday, and they received a preemptive offer yesterday, and
jumped on it.
The listing agent blasted out a notice to 35 realtors that have either shown or have booked showings. So there's definitely interest, right? So they'll for sure be getting multiple offers, and instead of 220 lists, it'll probably go for, who knows, 245, 255.
Right. How often are people willing to look in different areas to get that price?
I would say that's
more people will up the price to stay in the area.
I would say that is the number one thing that people are willing to settle on is area, okay. Right? And that's just the reality.
Yeah.
Numbers are numbers, and unless something drastic happens, you likely can't change that, okay? But you can always go look in a new area, right? And that's
over the last 3-4 years, I would say I've had a lot more Londoners moving outside of London.
Sure.
To St. Thomas, Lucan, Strathroy, Watford, some of the quieter towns that are slower paced, and there's fewer multiple offers, and some of them are cheaper neighborhoods, not necessarily all the time.
Yep.
But they can actually buy something, right?
Yeah.
Whereas in London, they were getting frustrated with the process. So.
If you look at average price points, so London right now, I believe, is hovering somewhere around the
415.
Sorry, 410, 420 average price point mark. You move out to Middlesex County, it's 506.
Yeah.
Now, that's also because you have acreage properties, you have
new builds.
I mean, new builds, especially when you leave London right now, are hot because the big thing is your dollars go a lot further. The land was cheaper, but you also get more land, right? Like Thorndale, where I moved 5 years ago, I mean, a standard lot was 50 by 150.
Yeah.
Like that was the norm. That
Unless
was like
property
the basic.
taxes a lot of the time too.
Well, property taxes statistically, they like based off just the percentage you're charged, it's 29% cheaper.
Right.
When you really then try and compare an apple to an apple, I would say it's 50 to 70% cheaper. And it's just because if you take a brand new home, that same square footage, that same size lot, and what you would pay on property taxes in London, it's drastically more money in London. Now you get more services. I mean, there's no busing out there and other amenities, but you know, I mean, not everybody needs that.
Yeah,
right?
it's becoming
eventually.
Yeah, at some point
it's becoming an option for a lot of people. And you know, I've also seen people moving within the city to areas that 3 years ago would have been considered less desirable, right? But that is becoming first-time buyer central, right?
Absolutely.
And it's going to change the entire face of that neighborhood, right? Eventually. But that is what people are willing to do to transact in this market, right?
Just to get their foot in the market, right? And then they can build equity, and maybe in 4 to 6 years they upsize into something a little bigger that once their career is a little more stable. And
but once again, does that weigh on the buyer pool, right? Is that becoming a point? Are we coming to a point? Because that's another thing that they're giving up, right? I gave up control of the process. I gave up control of, you know, what I was during a negotiation, right? Now I'm giving up control over where I would like to end up. Mm-hmm. How does that sit with the buyer pool? Like, there has to be a wall. There has to be a wall. If we haven't hit it, we're close, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm still unsure as to whether we've hit it yet or not.
I don't know.
Like I said, I
feel like there's
a little funky
skipping
right now.
And I think what we can do is we can do these skips where we see these dip ups, dip downs.
Yeah.
I also think we could actually do another kick up
100%.
where
I feel
another
like we will.
year of 10 to 15 to 18% price increases. Again, the Londoners, and you touched on this, Dale, people who grew up in Toronto have been going through what we just started going through.
Right.
They're being pushed out, right? Like there are first-time home buyers in Toronto that are buying their first home in other cities, not to move here or move there. They're doing it to get into the market because hopefully these other cities appreciate at a level that then allows them to cash out after 5 years and then maybe afford something in the Toronto market, as an example. But London is starting to see the Londoners are getting pushed out to the perimeter towns.
It's a domino effect.
And then, I mean, if you think about it, you know, the whole GTA Toronto area, you're 7, 8, I don't even know, like 7, 8, 9 million. What is it even in that whole area, right? Like not just Toronto, but like Toronto, Niagara, the whole belt, like everything around the Toronto. Like it's a lot
population-wise?
Population-wise, right? And we're trending to 1/3 of our population is going to be retirement age or older. And don't get me wrong, when you hit 65, you don't necessarily retire, but as you age, you generally do. And when you retire, you typically don't stay in a big city like a Toronto. The problem that we have in Canada, and particularly call it more so Ontario, we don't have cities that can absorb that massive shift.
That demographic of people.
But you look at it, London, we're just far enough to feel a Toronto effect, but not far enough away to not feel it, right? So you can move to London and you can do a day trip to Toronto if you were retired and things would be good. You can't do it if you move to Windsor.
No.
It's just not going to work, right? So that's why I think, one reason why I think we are going to continue to maybe see this for another year, maybe 2 years, and then maybe it'll taper off, who knows. But then the other element that's and this is part of what's fueling Toronto is the number of immigrants and refugees coming into our country. We are bringing in, I believe it's about roughly around 3 times the norm. They're human beings. They have to live somewhere.
Yeah.
They don't, they're not birds. They don't live in trees. Like they just, you know what I mean? Like you have moms, dads, kids, older people, younger people. Like they have to live somewhere.
Yep.
And we're not talking, 20,000 people. You're talking 600, 700, 800,000 people that need a place to live.
Yep.
that we're not used to absorbing that kind of influx because we're a big country landmass.
Yeah.
Population wise, we're not big and we're very concentrated, right? So I mean that fuels the Toronto market because they go to the air. That's where you get support culturally, right? Like London, we don't have a little
There are
little
pockets.
Chinatown.
There's pockets that are
but you don't
popular
have
with
like we don't
various
have like
cultures, right?
Chinatown district that's like huge. That's all around that culture. You like Little Italy kind of area. Like we don't have that here. You have, don't get me wrong, you have shops and things that cater to it, but it's not a neighborhood that fuels the influx, right?
They're not visible, I wouldn't say, right? They're scattered.
Not the way it is in the
However,
big cities.
Some tend to congregate
in
near
areas,
the
they
surfaces,
will.
services or
Yep.
churches, mosques that they have that they're familiar with, right? Because they're more comfortable with people that speak their own language and have certain cultural things, which
Makes sense.
makes perfect sense, right? So,
Yes.
another thing you touched on as well with the retirees and baby boomers, that's also fueling a huge demand in one floor homes and condos as well. A lot of retirees, they're downsizing from their big 2-story homes in Masonville, Westmount area, or wherever, and wanting to go to one floor, minimize the stairs, have laundry on the main floor. Some will have stair lifts down into the basement. So we've seen prices of ranches and bungalows climb huge over the last couple of years.
Here's an interesting thing. Who else is looking at those type of proproperties?
First-time buyers.
Right.
First time buyers, young
Bungalow
professionals.
and condo traditionally, because it's a smaller home, right? That was in an affordable price bracket that a first-time home buyer could look at. So now you have baby boomers and first-time buyers competing over the same thing.
Who has more money typically?
Well, yeah.
yeah.
Okay. But that is where so much intense action in the market, right? Like price point.
You got to say that's what 40-50% of the market then right there.
Yeah.
So I mean like
between 250 and 450,000, that price point, I'd be curious to know what percentage of houses sold in London in 2019 fall between that price point. I'd bet that it's higher than 50%.
yeah, it's possible.
I would bet that it's higher than 50%.
Yeah. All right. So we could probably go on for a million years. So let's just kind of wrap it up. But I want to wrap it up asking a question. Prediction time.
Okay.
We're going to start with Dale. Hold on. Time out. Where do you think the market will be 6 months from now and then 12 months from now?
6 months from now, it's springtime again. So
Past springtime. We're moving into summer in 6 months.
Getting around what, April?
Yeah,
End of April.
May.
End of April.
To me, that's summer market. But
March, April, May is hopping, right? It's busy. So I feel like.
so you think very active for buyers, sellers market or buyers market?
I think it's still going to be a seller's market. Personally, I feel like it's going to continue in London for another 1.5 to 2 years is just my gut feeling. Like I said, right now it's skipping a little bit. However, it's somewhat controlled by external factors like the election, overnight interest rates, Toronto market, and the seasons, the temperature, right?
Yeah.
Once the snow comes, some buyers just say, I'm going to wait till spring. That's a perfect opportunity for buyers, right? Because there's usually less buyers that are still serious and looking through the winter time.
Yeah.
And the sellers that are selling in the winter, they're the ones that need to sell.
Okay. So 12 months from now, where do you think? Same thing? Slight different?
I feel like it's going to be similar to what we're experiencing right now, where it's still going to be busy. It's still going to be a seller's market. However, it might pull back again around this time of year. I don't know. Time will tell, I guess.
Cam,
Okay.
your thoughts? 6 months
6 months from now, I think it will still be a seller's market via the numbers, okay? However, I don't see the intensity. Like, I think we're at a turning point where the buyer pool is not going to come back from where they're at right now, okay?
What do you mean? Elaborate on that a bit more.
Just the mentality of the whole thing, Okay, I think the buyer pool is going to continue to reject the standard process that we've been going through the past 2 years, and I think it is going to impact how the market is transacting in 6 months from now. Okay, and then you continue to 12 months from now. I think even more, the buyers are going to do everything they can to try and regain some power and some leverage in the process. All right, I think that's going to continue. The numbers 6 months from now and 12 months from now will continue to tell us that we're in a seller's market. All right. I think it will soften. Something that we didn't really talk about is new build inventory over the past 2 years has been very geared towards large single detached houses, and the market has started to shun that portion of the market. Okay. And builders are starting to wrap their heads around condos, townhouses, and smaller units. All right. I think next
chasing
year,
affordability.
Right. Okay. So I think we're going to see an influx of more affordable new build inventory that is also going to soften the seller's market because they're going to fill a demand where the resale market can't. So I think that is going to impact the seller's market over the next few years. Right. That's my predictions.
12 months from now?
An even softer seller's market. I think it's going to start to balance out.
Just okay.
I think it's in everyone's best interest that things start to
balance out.
Okay.
How far away are we from a balanced market then? You think 12 months from now? You think 2 years, 3 years, 5 years? When do you think it's
I
gonna
think that the government is going to do everything they can to prevent us from getting to a balanced market. So never. 4 years at the least. I don't know. Especially with the first time home buyers incentive, it's in the government's best interest for property values to continue rising.
Yep.
So I don't, and they've really shown that they like to stick their nose in the housing market over the past few years. So I don't see us getting to a balanced market. It would be. We might get to a point, though, where we see something like they've already talked about it, changing multiple offer scenarios. So right now, this is a different topic, but if they were to make some sort of pass some sort of legislation that changes how we operate a multiple offer scenario by forcing sellers to disclose competing offers, that could change things. And that is because of how buyers feel in this market, right? They're looking at REBA 2002 right now, and part of that is, do we require the disclosure of competing bids? Could it happen? I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't think that'll happen.
But the buyer pool is starting to impact what the government's doing with this process. They are.
I feel like
that's
London,
looking at it on a one-sided lens, though.
True.
What do you mean?
Well, okay, so we have something called a free market in the West.
It's exactly okay. So
and that just
that's
like
what
you
I'm
are
saying.
literally you're rigging the market.
They're not going to do that.
Yeah,
right?
they can't.
It would be silly to do that.
It's great. You maybe started as a conversation to then get to a solution,
right? And that's what's happening. That's the start of a conversation that is fueled by the buyer's side.
Yeah.
Okay, and it will impact the seller's market.
Most buyers are also sellers, though. So is it are they shooting themselves in the foot?
Depends. What are you selling and what are you buying?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you downsizing? Because then you're more frustrated than happy with the market. Are you upsizing? You're in heaven. Because you're going to a price point that's more attainable than what you're selling. Okay. But like we just said, we're going to have a lot of baby boomers downsizing, selling large 2-story family houses.
I don't think we've even seen enough of them downsizing
We're not
yet.
We haven't even hit the tip of the iceberg. Okay.
Yeah.
But in that scenario, what are they doing first? They're buying first because they've got this $600,000-$800,000 estate that their family grew up in that will be a lot harder sell than trying to find that $400,000 bungalow with everything that Dale already mentioned.
Yeah.
Okay, so in that scenario, how happy are you with that process? You're not.
I don't know.
I feel like London is maybe a little insulated or a bit of an island as well, because we do have 4 hospitals. We've got a university, and Fanshawe College.
Two big, like a
Yeah.
big university,
Yeah.
big college. Like
Yeah.
they're
And now downtown campuses for Fanshawe as well. So we have a lot of students, which attracts a lot of investors or parents buying places for their kids while they're at school. And a lot of the baby boomers, retirees from Toronto, like you said, they once you retire, a lot of them probably don't want to stay in Toronto if they don't have family there. They don't have any attachments. Why would you want to put up with the traffic and
Yeah.
everything, right? So London is one of those cities it's a great size. It's a tenth the size of or tenth the population of Toronto. However, we still have Bud Gardens with entertainment. We've got schools, hospitals, the healthcare that they're looking for. So you can walk to entertainment, take a cab, bus system, right? So it's a great mid-sized city that's still very affordable, right? It's the third most affordable large city in Canada.
Yep.
The only two more affordable are Windsor and Edmonton, right?
Yeah.
So Windsor's the only close one to Toronto. I assume most of them aren't going to move from Toronto to Edmonton.
Yeah.
So mosquitoes are huge.
Yeah, it's too cold there.
All right. So on that note, we're wrapping up. We're
All right.
done. Hopefully, it's brought some value to some people
Yeah.
out there. Thanks for chatting, guys.
This was fun. Let's
Thanks.
do it again sometime.
All right.
Bye.